All right, we're going to see if this works. Sometimes it asks you on Restream. It goes through the Digimulator. All right, we just went live. Does it go live?
Hey, Greg, one little thing.
We're live now with nobody on yet.
Greg, one little thing.
Yep.
When you sit back in your chair, the microphone gets all fuzzy sounding. So if you just stay a little closer to your monitor, it'll sound
Anybody
better.
come in yet?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I just
Well, I
noticed
can't
that
see it up here though.
It happens to me too when I lean back. We don't exactly have NASA level spying.
When you ride when
Technology
you ride with the gangsta lean, you know what the gangsta lean is, don't you?
No.
The gangsta lean is when you got the left hand high on the wheel and you're leaning to the right so hard you can look out the passenger window when you're driving.
That's a good lat stretch too.
This is called the gangsta lean.
It's a good lat stretch too.
So
I learned something new today.
I like to do that riding through Chicago here. I gangsta lean. Usually.
Oh, I thought you did. I thought you liked that riding through downtown Winnetka.
Well, the MG Midget, I'm gangsta leaning all the time, right? Because yeah. Looks like we're just getting a few more people on here. What do we got it up to, Nick? We have 15 people on today so far. So we started a little late. See if we can get some more people on. 14 of them are probably working at Materials Exchange.
I'm happy to hear the staff is growing so exponentially.
Yes. Yeah, we're streaming 20 people live. That's all of our staff right now.
Let's go. Let's do it.
Wait for everybody. Please announce who you are. If you can, tell us where you're from, where you're watching from. Give us a little flavor of where you're at here, everybody.
Disclaimer.
Yeah, disclaimer. Any conversations, ideas, comments, questions are all things that we recommend you think twice before ever contemplating doing. These are just a conversation. Please do not try them at home and keep your hands and feet inside the ride at all time. And if you can't fit underneath that little arm, please don't get on the ride.
You know the thing on CNBC where they have somebody on and it's like, conflicts. He's an advisor too. They have a position in this. They're a market maker in this. We're just gonna check all the boxes.
Yeah.
Beamer and I check all the boxes. Yes.
They're about to take they're about to take a position 2 seconds after the conversation.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna say that thing again yesterday when Matt and I were talking on the phone and we're like going, well, the algorithm must be listening to us because they're bidding the futures up right now. When we said, hey, maybe we should buy.
Yeah, that's funny. So, hey, look at welcome everybody to the Materials Exchange Broadcasting Network, part of Materials Exchange. We are the only digital platform matching, shipping, and pulling and pushing the money in the forest products industry. This is episode number 10 of This Week in Lumber. This Week in Lumber with Greg Riley and Matt Beamer. I wanted to start out, everybody, cheers with the Materials Exchange Arctic mugs. You can drink your cool beverage and enjoy it, or your warm beverage and enjoy it. So the question of the day to win one of these mugs: what branch of the U.S. military was Matt Beamer in? What branch of the U.S. military was Matt Beamer in? And if you can answer this question, you will win an Arctic Cooler mug.
So can I Google that and find out?
I don't think so. Because Matt only has had a web or a social media presence for about the last 3 weeks. So technically he has no satellites over his house. He can travel efficiently right now. We are working on hopefully changing that in the next 6 weeks as he gets his way into the social media. So
I mean, I take a look at him and I go, man, he would be a great grunt. Huh?
Somebody put, Bob put Maris, put Coast Guard, Christopher Gold put Navy. All All right, let's start this thing. Greg, we were chatting beforehand. Matt, I know we played some phone tag. Housing. Let's talk about the information that came out this morning. Greg, you wanna bring that up?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure everyone has seen the report. Housing starts were up 3.6% from last month. I did a little deep dive into the data and looked at it and said, hey, so year to date, single family starts are up 25%, and permits are up 32.7%. I said, okay, hey, that's great. That's 5 months. We're on a pace to be like 1,550,000 kind of thing, maybe 1,600,000.
Yeah.
And obviously all the reports were about how material shortage, I saw one headline: exorbitant lumber prices, slow home building. The most interesting number that I saw was the number that we don't really pay a lot of attention to, but it's authorized but not started yet. Okay.
Tell us a little bit about that. Where did you find that?
That's the number that you look at. I mean, hey, this is stuff that's ready to go. It's permitted. It's permitted, but it's hasn't been started. That number is up 50% from a year ago, and it's up 27% from the fourth quarter average. And I guess if I look at that, I go, hey, that makes sense, because what we're doing is we're stretching out the business, because we got to a point where we could only build so much because of all of the constraints that we've been talking about. And I look at it as a really positive. I look at it as a very positive sign for the market for the next 3 to 6 months or longer.
So that you have permits, starts, and then this little stat that's authorized but not started. Isn't that a permit?
No. Something that, so the difference between what's been permitted and what's been started is authorized but not started.
Okay. So it's basically a backlog.
It's a backlog of business that's ready to go, and it continues to grow 50% above last year, 27% above the fourth quarter average.
Okay, Matt, did you read anything into starts and permits at all?
I mean, my opinion about starts and permits is that data may or may not reflect reality that I'm seeing at my desk, and that's been true for 9 years, 10 years. But I mean, the trend obviously is our friend. We've been growing slowly. I think if you just rewind the clock from the beginning of our careers to say 2008, 2009, the average number of housing starts in this country was right around 1.5 million. And we've been running below 1.5 million for 13 years, 12 years. So I just feel like this country's kind of underbuilt a little bit in general, has been underbuilt the last decade or so. And this pandemic unleashed a torrent of pent-up demand that's not satisfied yet. So we'll see how this all works out.
I agree with that. I will say, since I've been in the industry, people have always pushed the demographics show that we're underbuilt. There was something on LinkedIn today by 5.5 million houses. Like, okay, people have been saying that since I've been in the industry, right? And I think what it comes down to is we can only build as fast as the labor and land and logistics and everything let us, right? But you're right. I think what you and Greg are both saying is we've got some pretty strong wind behind our back on this one. And as we get more labor help, the guy in Illinois said something the other day, like he's got X amount of 100 people on his framing crew, and if he had 100 or 200 more, they could even work faster, right? I mean, so I think it means that there's a lot out there. Let's talk a little bit about what happened this week and last week overall. I mean, it's kind of if you're not strapped in like you and Greg are every day, it's almost unbelievable the way prices moved, right? So where you guys sit, you see a lot more, like you're in the captain's chair, either taking off or coming in on an approach, right? So it's crazy. And I always, so last week on the platform, we traded some 2x6 pine, for instance, which was mind boggling how low below the high price in print it was, right? And ours probably, and then I heard numbers well below that, right? So let's, 9-footers traded as high as 2,000, 1,000, and which is $12 a stick. And in some markets traded half of that price this week, $6 a stick. I mean, think about those numbers, like, and how. So overall, like, let's talk a little bit about what happened. Breakdown Western Canada, which is basically the CME benchmark. And Matt, you kind of had some good comments. We were going back and forth on contract-based stuff last week. Like, even though that's a diminishing, although Greg said that the production was up in Canada that one's tough. I mean, where was Western Canada and that what were they trading relative to high price index and so forth? What have you seen this week?
They're off about $700, really. I mean, if you just want to use a round number. And so, what's changed in the last week is probably the last 300. I mean, we dropped $300 or $400 fairly quickly, and then we've dropped another shelf down to, like, say, $1,000 Prince George. Rough and dirty, just use round numbers to make it simple. But, that's significant. So it took 8 months to run the price up $900 from November. Let's say it took 7 months from November to end of May to get up to all-time highs. And it took like 3 weeks to take out 40% of that, increase. So I guess I just see it as, hey, we've had extraordinary circumstances in our lumber business going up, and we're going to have extraordinary circumstances on the way down as well. And at some point, people will have enough reason to buy more lumber. They're either getting rid of inventory that they don't want to have, or they just finally see that they've reached a point where, I'm profitable. I can go ahead and buy some lumber now. And I think we're really near that point at this juncture, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. I mean, so just before I go to Greg and Easter, how about U.S. West, which you're really good on too? How did those prices adjust over the last week and a half, 2 weeks? That's to you, Matt. How are U.S. West numbers?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, we're competing. So Western Hem Fir is a whitewood species, and it's competing with spruce. I mean, it always does, it always will. So when the board starts to taper off like it has in the last several weeks, then we have to follow that down eventually. Eventually our order files will run out, so we'll have to go out and engage the cash market at whatever the new price is. Well, lately the new price has been set by spruce. Doug fir is a different animal. Green Doug fir, our order files are still lengthy, and dry Doug fir we have better order files on. Just Doug fir across the West Coast has been a much better item for us. So I can't speak for all mills, but I think Doug fir is slightly healthier than the whitewood species.
Gotcha. And Greg, Eastern Canada, that's really where you really, I mean, most of the markets, but Eastern Canada is where you really get into. Any thoughts there?
At least sometimes I'd like to think so, but this last week I feel like I know less than I've ever known. When you said that Matt and I are in the captain's chair, Matt's in the captain's chair. I'm in the restaurant. I mean, I'm in the restroom in the back of the plane.
No, you're in that chair, that ladder that goes up to that lounge back in the 70s. Yeah.
Yeah,
I tell you, it's. I mean, this last, I'm going to say week or so, and in particularly these last few days, has been as tough as it ever is to try and put your finger on where the right price is.
You can't. You and I had a conversation the other night about. You're always, one thing you always do when somebody calls you, Greg, and I've learned like that. You always have a bid for somebody and a reason why you have that bid, whether they take it or not, right? Or an offer. So, I mean, even you were a little like, it's the same but different every time, right? Like what you're getting done.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, legitimately, I look, some people made me some offers along the way here. And, there was such a drastic move, and the spread, like between in a day, the same product you could sell in the morning for a price, and in the afternoon you may be $200 lower or $200 higher.
That's insane.
Absolutely wild. And I go, I mean, and I don't know how anybody, I don't know how as we as an industry operate in that environment.
I don't think you can. I think you'd rather be lucky than good in that kind of environment and feel like blessed for if you did do something, right?
Right. Now, I mean, the one thing, that's maybe like one of the shocking things to me is how, in a period of, 30 days, people couldn't have enough lumber to, now they don't need any.
Yeah.
And how is that possible?
That brings me to a point that I know from my trading around with you and Matt over the years that kind of, I guess I'll make a comment. When's the best time, Greg, to what's the definition of a good short? That you used to always tell me something that you can cover immediately or in 24 to 48 hours, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we are so far past that at this point, even though we're at high numbers. I hear people saying, well, I'm going to go in and bid people now. And I guess you could, but I mean, we've sold off so hard. So trying to, I mean, look at it. People can do whatever they want. If I'm a trader at this point, trying to short sell something in here, probably that a lot of that froth is probably gone already. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Matt and I, this was a conversation that Matt and I were having yesterday.
Yeah.
Is that, the market's gotten very oversold very quickly.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know I can speak for the Eastern Spruce. The last 24 hours has probably been some of the most volume that's traded all year. I mean, there's been a big volume of wood that's been traded, short covering, people like bidding on inventory needs. I mean, listen, we can look at the housing start numbers, and in 30 days, if the reason we got to where we got to was because end use consumption was outpacing production. You don't go from $500 or $600 to $1,700 because everything's in balance. There was an imbalance in the end. Pick a number, whether it was the last $300, the last $500, the last $700, the last $1,000 was overdone. I don't know how much that is, but I mean, markets always seek equilibrium, and when the farther they get away from them, they need to correct. So what's a new equilibrium for 2x4s? Is it $950 or is it $650?
Well, Greg,
is it $1,250?
You brought up a good point when I was being surly talking to you on the deck the other day. I said, "Hey, things
you were a little crusty. I'm going to recommend that you take some vacation day."
Yeah, I was a little bent out of shape, but I'll get over it. Right? It's like anything when you're strapped in for too long, you start getting tunnel vision. So my question is, cost of production. So cost of production probably has gone up in Western Canada because they're, like you said, they've got that stumpage rate that has increased proportionately as the price of lumber goes up, right? So where we used to say the cost is $300 US base mill or $350, I don't know what the stumpage costs are now, but it certainly could be a lot higher than that, right?
Well, and I think lumber producers have had to deal with cost increases of everything, right? You think about, there's a shortage of everything, so everything that they do costs more money. Yeah. Matt probably has more insight into costs than I do.
Yeah, Matt. So when I throw that cost of production number out, I think that there's it's probably a little bit higher than I normally think. More so in Canada, less so in the Southeast, right?
Yeah, I think yellow pine guys have relatively inexpensive costs of logs. I mean, but everything else that they have to buy or service to operate the sawmill, like Greg said, is going to cost them more, and it's going to take longer to get parts, and it's going to be more expensive to get somebody to come in. And if you can't handle the work yourself, you have to hire consultants to come in and put in like a new fin scan type system, something like that with your planer. That's going to take longer and it's going to cost more. So everything costs more. Transportation costs more, labor costs more, electricity, gas, everything costs more to run your plant. In the South, the logs don't really cost that much more. There's just more logs in the South, and it's too big a market to really. It's not a niche, It's a big market. And then in Doug fir and hem fir logs out west, those prices are at or near all-time highs. I mean, they've been consistently high for a while. And then the spruce guys, like Greg alluded to, and I'd forgotten about this completely. He mentioned this yesterday in our call, that the spruce guys were indexed against the average price of spruce. That was one of the settlement agreements on the duty.
Really?
And,
okay.
Well, that was one of the changes that was made and lobbied for by our country, as a counterpoint to how the Canadians were pricing their logs back in the bug kill days. And so, yes, stumpage rates have gone up quite a bit, and they will go. You could actually see a position where, like in the third or fourth quarter, spruce guys are running at a loss because their log prices are tied to what the price of lumber was, 6 months ago. So it's a tricky situation if you're a Canadian producer right now. Very tricky.
So I kind of wanted to put some bookends of what we were talking about, the selling part. Things really escalated. I think sometimes a lot of people in the chain don't see it. There was a lot of trading went on yesterday. There was a lot of lumber moved yesterday. Some that people don't even see, and numbers people will never see, right? So my question is, regardless of where we're at in the numbers, things sold off at a percentage, like Matt said, almost $700 1,000 from the high, right? If you want to think about something and wrap your melon around it, that's a range that we never even traded at for 50 years or since the beginning of lumber. That happened in a week and a half.
Actually, the historical average annual price range used to be $135. That was the average, and a big year was $200 or $300 from the whole year, high to low.
Right.
We have that in like 3 days now.
Yeah, no doubt. So my question is this, and again, I'm always want to phrase this in a way that I don't make people want to do something one way or another, right? Right now, people should probably be looking at what they want to be potentially bidding on instead of selling, is my guess. I mean, right? Could be wrong. I always like to leave the end of a sentence, I could be wrong, because I certainly could be, but there's been a lot of lumber traded at significantly lower prices that you're not going to see. If you're trading off of an index price, I don't think the index is going to catch the severity of some of these moves this week. Do you guys? I mean, nothing. I don't know how they can.
It never does. It never does. And
nothing. It's a great deal. I'm just saying is, how is the index? Because as we all know, over the last 6 months, people bought a lot of stuff out, booking into mills order files based off of a print price in the future, right? So, and a lot of trades last week, especially on pine, were done where big mills would come out and say, we'll do something every week for 6 weeks at a discount to the index, right? So how is the index? What do you guys think buyers should be looking at stuff? And this is a good time, I think, to get some stuff done if you want to get some stuff done, regardless of where the index is going to print. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, if you have 40% devaluation of your commodity, math tells you that you should probably at least think about starting to buy some stuff that you would have had to buy anyway. So, you're getting if you paid $1,000 mill for a car or two before random, any species, doesn't matter. And 4 weeks ago, that car was quoted and sold at 1,700 mil. You're talking like $80,000 per rail car change in value. That's a lot of money. That's a car of lumber that cost $200,000 now costs $120,000.
So, all right. So, great point. How are buyers going to see this, right? Like, for all these sellers that have been doing 30 days with home builders, and again, they're just averaging their costs down, right? But how are the buyers at the end of this chain going to see this price movement? Or is it going to be a blip to them, or will they see that?
Oh no, they see it. They see it.
Okay.
Sure.
I mean, we're talking about
but
it,
I mean,
right?
the bigger picture that I see right now is business is great. We've had an issue with a lot of products, lumber not being one of them, that is moderating how much business can happen at any given point in time, which is giving all of the supply chain kind of chance to catch up. I go back to my recommendation, which is, hey, be disciplined. How many days of inventory do you want? What's going to happen with a price corrects like this is guys will let their inventory run lower than they should. That will sow the seeds for the next problem. And particularly when we're looking at the calendar, I mean, we all know there's a seasonality in lumber prices that some late June, the market typically bounces into mid-July. Summer shutdowns, fire season, right? All of those things come into play. So I mean, my feeling is, and the other thing that I'll say is we've talked about this in the past, multifamily jobs. There is multifamily jobs all across this country that have been on hold, waiting for prices to correct. I mean, I can tell you that I've started to see and written the business on some jobs already that the prices have come back. To Matt's point, they've come back so much that, hey, we're going to go ahead and move forward. Yeah, it's not at the price that maybe they wanted it, but it's a lot better than it was.
So back to your conversation from last week, this is now a value to them instead of a low price.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Now it's starting to get in the value territory. So I wanted to bring up what Craig Webb just said here and give some props to Mike Wisniewski, our CEO. So Mike was quoted in the Wall Street Journal today. I think he gave the interview a few days ago, talking about shadow inventory. And we at MX do see some of this when we have people calling that are non-traditional sellers. As a matter of fact, they're traditional buyers selling that extra chunk that they bought and put into a shed somewhere as a hedge against prices moving up, right? And Craig asked the question, how much shadow inventory is out there? And given that, how long will it take to burn through the shadow inventory? I can tell you this, Craig, from my experience doing analysis on the business over all the companies I've been at, we always think it's a large amount of production or consumption that moves the needle up and down. It's, from what I've seen, it's not. It's always that small amount displacement somewhere in the pipeline that moves our industry around more. Let's say it's a 500 million board foot mill shuts down, or two of them. That's a significant impact, right? So a shadow inventory in lumber is almost like the people in gas trading look at how much extra inventory is in people's gas tanks sitting in their driveway, right? So how much is out there? More than normal, and I think a lot of that's getting mitigated right now and worked through the chain. Does that make sense how I answered that, Craig? Matt, what's your thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I mean that seems reasonable to me.
Yeah, I mean you have a shadow inventory and you have a shadow demand also, right? I mean, Greg just talked about the multifamily jobs that have been held up, for most of this year because it was all sold based on $800 to $1,000 lumber.
Yeah.
We raced way past that, and now we're right back into that target zone. So that's shadow demand, along with the shadow inventory that you're referring to. It all kind of balances out in the long run in our business. You have to look at housing starts and housing permits as the thing that's pulling the cart. And then all these things that occur in between are just the lumber market. These are just things that happen in every year, every market we've ever experienced in our entire careers. There's been shadow inventory and there's been shadow demand. So you can wrap your head around all that if you want to, but the big picture is more important, which is how much inventory is in the field, who has the inventory, and when is the inventory needed somewhere. And if you know those things, you can operate your business successfully.
Yeah. And Craig just asked, it sounds as if the Wall Street Journal overplayed the idea that lots of people have hoarded product. I don't know if anybody really knows how much people have hoarded product, right? Because, look at, I bought extra rolls of toilet paper last year. I guess I hoarded product, right?
Yeah, but you burned through it really fast.
I bought one of those big coffin deep freezes and bought like a cow and put it in there. So I hoarded beef, right? So I guess how much do people hoard if they normally bought one truck and bought two? I mean, hoarding, and look at, we've had some small builders call us and say they're building warehouses near rail facilities so they never traditionally stored stuff, right? And I think not only is it happening, but I think people are going to continue to do that. So what it does is it just creates more opportunity for inventory to go into a location and sit to be consumed at a later date, right?
Well, and if we really think about it, I mean, the one thing is that there was never a lack of availability of any lumber. Lumber was rationed, and that's why the prices went so high. You look right now, and everyone will tell you that, there was talk about, OSB was a problem. Well, that seems to have leveled itself out. Same reason, because it rations itself by price. MX platform is a perfect example. You were able to move OSB from people that had it and didn't need it to people that needed it. And
because we're disrupting a kind of a good old boy network chain of distribution there, right? Where people wanted to kind of say, I wanted to go through this, and it never historically went back in after that, right?
What you need to do now is, the problem right now is engineered wood. So really what the platform needs to do is make available those that have engineered wood to those that need engineered wood.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I love it.
So, I mean, I'd put that out as, that's a good starting point.
The thing that really got OSB trading on the platform was the mismatch between index and spot, right?
Right.
So, and it's regional too, right? And you can tell that when we're shipping from the Northeast all the way to Texas, right? Or from the Midwest to Florida, or Florida back over to somewhere in the Missouri area, right?
I suspect that you will find, if you were able to attract people that had excess engineered wood, you would find it very similar. And I mean, the reality on that is, there's no real price transparency. So providing price transparency would be probably very advantageous. And the regional differences are pretty stark.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's probably one that, and I don't have enough experience with that. I really have to get an expert to talk about that. But that would make sense. So I wanted to also ask you guys, logistics. What are you seeing out there in logistics right now as far as trucking goes? Better, worse, same, different areas that you notice, Matt? And then let's talk about Europe. You guys both keep European spruce on the docks. How's logistics affecting that right now?
It's no better. You could say it's even worse in the ports. I'm having all kinds of troubles with getting my stuff picked up when it was promised. Truckers just don't show up. They don't call. They just go find another load and don't say anything, and then you find out about it after the fact. So we're rebooking trucks. We're doing the best we can, but it's never been really this hard and this expensive for me to move my stuff around out of the port. It's also taking me longer to get it off the vessel through the inspection process and then into a separate out of the facility, covered storage facility where they have to now receive it and count it and all that stuff. So that used to take about a week, maybe 10 days. Now it's taking like 3 weeks. It just seems to be like they're overworked and understaffed. So, but in terms of like our sawmill activity and just shipping out of our normal reload locations, like in Fort Worth or Modesto, Salt Lake City, other places we keep wood, it's not easy. It's not any better. It's not any worse. It just is. You just have to deal with it. We've had more problems with trucking this year than ever, and the rail problem doesn't seem to be as big of a problem. We have some small rail issues here and there that pop up, but they go away fairly quickly. Thank goodness we don't have rail issues on top of truck issues, because it would be a real nightmare if that were the case.
Greg, how's your experience on logistics right now?
Yeah, I mean, it continues to be a challenge. I mean, I feel like, honestly, I mean, we're paying 50 to 100% above, what we used to pay on a lot of lanes, and our directive is pay whatever you have to do to keep the wood moving, so I kind of feel like maybe it's a little better because of that. But I mean, it's still, it's still a challenge, I guess. When you talk, I mean, the most notable thing, kind of today that's come up was, I had a report that job sites in North Carolina are all getting redlined due to the use of European lumber. So some local building department has decided to make an issue, which I mean, these things come up from time to time. It's gonna be a conversation probably over the next few days until the grading agencies get things straightened out. But I mean, it seems like it's always something.
So, question for you. I know we're going late here, but I got a lot of questions, and this is kind of important. So, Europeans coming in here now. If the index isn't following down as fast as spot, how are they going to price their lumber coming in here? I mean, certainly if you're buying euro right now, you don't want to buy on index if you're trading stuff X amount below it, right?
No.
Or is that like a negotiation?
No, it's just going to be a cash negotiation between you and your supplier. And I think if you're like Greg, you're in the U.S. market every single day, you probably have a pretty good idea of what you want to pay, or you'll have a better idea of what it's worth than somebody that's sitting in a different time zone half a world away.
Yeah.
And that's how that gets done.
I think a bigger issue is, hey, what about all the wood that's sitting at docks that was destined to home centers that's getting pushed back? Is there
that happens?
Does that happen?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen.
Is that happening right now?
The biggest increase in the supply of lumber over the last 30 to 45 days has been the excess wood that home centers are not taking,
which we've been talking about for 2 months, and it's finally starting to.
We were talking about that from the very first episode, right?
First call. Matt predicted it.
Yeah.
I don't remember half of what I say. So, like the disclaimer says, don't do anything based on our.
You don't remember half of what you said at the beginning of the call.
Don't even listen to it. So here's one of the things that's fascinating to me, and I think Matt, you can really touch on this, and so can you, Greg. Last week, what I noticed is a lot of mills, especially in the South, didn't want to take counters at starting out early because people. Their low grade prices were so high, and they had excess higher grade. They didn't want to go down below their lower grade prices, right? And a lot of the buyers didn't need number 3, but they bought number 2 because that's all the mills had to offer, right? And that's probably the same way. And that generally, to me, has been a precursor to prices either at a top or a bottom when all the prices start coming together, right? And so a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, you had number 3 and all the low grades come up and meet the high grades, right? So where are those grades at now, and what are they doing? Did we get a separation? Is there a spread again now? Let's look at spruce, Matt. Is there a spread between number 3 in Texas on spruce versus number 2, or are they on top of each other?
Nobody really has an overabundance of number 3 still today to offer. So, I mean, in theory, number 3 is worth $100 to $150 less than number 2. But, good luck finding a mill that wants to sell you 30, 40, 50 cars of number 3 right now that's going to ship anytime reasonable. Now, you could have the same conversation on number 2 with the same sawmill, and they could ship it in 2 weeks or sooner, and they will listen to your firm offer. So that is, if you're a guy that just wants to buy value, number 2 at a discount would be a better purchase right now than number 3 at a premium.
Yeah. So the point is there. Don't think that expect to get that $150 discount, maybe that discount is built in for number 2 being a dual product right now in a way.
Yeah, and then there's some kiln wets out there too that you could buy that are probably more reflective of the number 3 price. But just buying and selling pure number 3 from mills right now is not near as straightforward as the number 2 play is. So, I mean, if I was going to do anything, I'd probably just focus my efforts on number 2, to tell you the truth. You'll get it faster and you'll get a better deal.
So let's leave it with a comment from both of you. Greg, it's been a volatile year, but especially in the last week and a half, when people have volatility and they're afraid, greed and fear, they choose to do nothing sometime. What's your bit of advice to people out there? You're seeing some of the smart people that you deal with doing stuff, right?
I mean, I'm going with the broken record. Be disciplined. If you're an end user buyer, what's your budget number? Are you running out of time on getting your job booked? If your yard, how many days of inventory is a comfort level in terms of, listen, there are going to be ongoing logistics issues. So you don't want to run out just for the sake to save a few dollars. So I would say stay disciplined, stay focused. There's lots of noise in this market. Stay strapped in.
And hey, Greg, can I give your work number out so people have it?
Sure. Yeah, that's fine.
So if you want to call Greg, and Greg's one of his real expertise is market knowledge on everything, but he does a lot of the multifamily forward pricing type of stuff, and he's pretty damn good at it. His work number is 847-386-6692. Again, that's 847-386-6692. Man, that sounds like a commercial from Empire Carpet, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What email do they get you at, Greg?
Greg, Gregg, at sitkainc.com.
And Matt, can you give out your information so people can have it to call you? Because Matt's expertise is similar. Like if you want to know anything about the Texas market, or if you're in Texas and you want to work on long-term pricing and all along the Southeast, Matt's pretty damn good at that too. Matt, what can they reach you at?
Well, right now, this week is a horrible time to reach me because I'm moving. I'm literally in the process of boxing up all my stuff and moving.
So Greg can just take your business then, right? They can call Greg and take your business.
But you can reach me. The easiest way to get a hold of me and get any of my attention right now is to send me an email at mattbeamer@hamptonlumber.com, and I will reach back to you for sure. Absolutely. But I'm not hardly paying attention to my phone right now because as soon as this meeting's over, I'm going to head back home and start packing up more boxes and get ready to move. I've taken 10 loads to the dump or Goodwill in the last 2 weeks. I've probably got 3 or 4 more to go. I mean, it's just, dude, moving a family of 6, I don't recommend it. Highly not recommended, okay? But I will say, I want to add something to what Greg was talking about a second ago. And this is a point that I made to my own team, people that I work with. I said it's obvious that we are in a new market, and volatility is the key word now. So if you're not prepared for volatility, you need to get prepared for volatility. Volatility works both ways. It works down and up. And we're seeing the downside right now, but eventually we're going to see the upside too. Just be prepared for some volatility. Act accordingly. This is a change. We just went from say November through May of basically just a straight line up, right? With a little bit of a kind of a pause in March and April where lumber sort of just stopped for about a month. And then it went up exponentially beyond that. So what we're doing now, going like this, and eventually we're going to do this again, right? Be careful how you're acting in here. You know, you can make or lose a lot of money based on your decision making, and that's the final thought that I have for that.
Yeah, and if I'll do a little plug too for Materials Exchange. If you have some excess inventory that you want to sell, come on here. If you're on our platform as a natural buyer already, you got some stuff you want to sell, you can sell back into it. We've been doing it on a regular basis, and it's really been great. One other thing, as I've been monitoring the platform, the one place I'm noticing that we're missing a certain amount of, there's a little hole in the Midwest in that Missouri, Southeast Iowa, Illinois market that we could use some more sellers on, because we got a lot of active bids every day on good stuff. So we're looking for some buyers, some market makers to fill that in. So yeah, good analysis, Matt Beamer and Greg. We'll have episode 11 next week. And thanks for everybody sticking with us and going over a little bit. But I thought it was good information that we needed to cover. So everybody have a great weekend.